Hello, everyone. I am Ben Johnson, and this is the Perpetual Chess Podcast. Perpetual Chess is a weekly chess interview show where we talk with accomplished chess players, authors, and personalities about their lives, their careers, and how to improve at chess. Perpetual Chess is brought to you through the generosity of its Patreon and PayPal supporters and by Chessable.com. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Perpetual Chess. We have an extra special treat for you guys this week. The 8-time Russian champion, 2011 FIDE World Cup winner. Of course, he's won countless other tournaments. He's been a top 5 player in the world. He is a beloved Chess24 commentator, now a Chessable author. I believe that by the time this comes out, lifetime repertoire, the Grunfeld, will be released. Of course, in this course, I have it on high authority that our guest Peter Svidler says in the introduction. I'm known for winning a surprising number of Russian championships, resigning in somewhat drawing positions, and playing the Grunfeld. So a lifetime of work shared in this course. And of course, he's also known for his modesty and his kindness. So kind that he agreed to come on this podcast for a second time for some reason. So I'd like to welcome him. I
enjoyed
back.
The first one. I don't see why I wouldn't.
Well, I appreciate it very much. I should just get out our first appearance was episode 13 in February 2017. And Peter, welcome back.
Thank you. And hello to everybody.
Yes, and thank you. I can only imagine how busy you are, Peter. Of course, you're a family man. You've got this course coming out, and we have the FIDE Candidates set to resume on April 19th in Yekaterinburg, Russia. Of course, it's been reported that you worked with Grandmaster Kirill Alekseenko in the first half, so you may or may not have a role in this one. But if you don't mind, Peter, I'd like to start just by discussing that tournament a little bit.
Sure, of course, yeah. It's a kind of a really, really strange world we've been living in for the past year, and I mean, obviously, you know, the complete disappearance or almost complete disappearance of over the board chess is, you know, very far down the 31st page of things which should concern us, honestly. But for the professional chess players, it's been a strange year, and perhaps, you know, none stranger than for the participants of the candidates, because this is the event that your career is kind of building towards. I mean, this and the match if you win, and then to have it just aborted midway, and then have to somehow keep your powder fresh for an really unknowable amount of time. This was it's going to resume more than a year after it stopped last year, and yeah, it's a very, very strange situation, and don't really envy them very much. I will say.
For sure, it feels less strange than last year at this time, though. We have to give it that.
Yeah, we've gotten used to this you know, new normal and all that. But yeah, for the players, and in particular, I think for the two co-leaders, this must have been a very, very bizarre year, because you are, you know, with rest days, you are 10 days away from potentially, you know, your life changing, and then all of this gets put on hold, and you have to somehow not go completely mental thinking about it for the next God knows how long, and we will see how it restarts, and how easy it will be to return to over the board play, because I didn't actually check, but it feels to me that most of the players played pretty much no over the board chess at all in the past year, because no, Jan played the super final, which is at least something.
And Giri played Wick on Z.
Yeah,
right?
and Giri played. Yeah, some people played Vike, but apart from Vike and the super final, there was really nothing at all. And as someone who, I mean, these days my play is a lot more about, you know, finding new ways to kind of play something exciting. And I'm still a competitive player, of course, but I'm obviously much less competitive than I was I don't know 10 years ago or even 5 years ago. And for me, I think sources of motivations have shifted more in the direction of the creative side of it. But when I sat down to play round one of the super final in December, it was a really eerie feeling. And I don't think, like, modern chess players are very definitely unused to breaks of this length. You feel like you lose at least a little bit of touch with the pieces if you don't play for a couple of months even. And when all they've had for a year is one tournament, and then some amount of online practice, and for some it will be quite a lot, and for some it will be, I don't know, intermittent title Tuesdays. It's going to be a very, very challenging thing to come back to, because you don't have, like, this is the candidates. You don't have any warm-up rounds. You don't have you can't really take like a week to get back to the feeling of playing chess well. In a week the whole thing will be over. And it's I'm very excited for it, and in a way for Kirill, there is no pressure on him whatsoever. There was really no real pressure on him even in 2020, because he came in as a, judging simply by the figures and lack of experience and all that, he came in as an outsider. With I think it's correct to view it as a positive free roll, because I don't think there were very many people in the world who assumed he will absolutely destroy everything in his wake there. But if he does well, he makes a name for himself. And I think he has what it takes to, generally speaking, do well in these fields. It did not go all that great last year, but once again, I think the biggest challenge for him will just be to remember how it is to sit at the board and have all these, unbelievable amount of time on your clock instead of 3+2,
Right.
But, for him, it will still be strange, but it will be kind of, I think, manageable strange. Whereas for people who are leading the tournament in particular, for them, I'll be watching with great excitement. I think. Obviously, the reason for all this is very far from happy, and perhaps we shouldn't be so gleefully, anticipating people trying to deal with what is the fallout of a very traumatic event for all of us. But as somebody who has played top-level chess and also watched top-level chess with great interest my entire life, this is going to be a very exciting 10 days.
Yeah, it's been much anticipated. And Peter, of course, I have a few follow-up questions, but I'd just like to set the scene a little bit more about the candidates, just because, of course, these days, Peter, we have a lot of new chess fans.
Yeah, absolutely.
So for anyone wondering or not fully privy to the details of what we're talking about, on April 19th, the tournament will resume to determine who plays Magnus Carlsen for the World Championship in Dubai on November 24th. And there are 8 participants. And of course, the tournament was postponed because they tried to start it right when COVID was really accelerating in March of last year, and ended up postponing it at halftime. So as Peter alluded to, the 2 leaders are Maxime Bachir-Lagrave of France and Jan Nepomniachtchi of Russia with 4.5. With 3.5 behind them are Fabiano Caruana, Anish Giri, and Wang Hao, and Peter's friend Alexander Grishuk. And then with 2.5 are Ding Liren and Kirill Alekseenko. So we're looking forward to this very much, of course. So Peter, a couple follow-ups. You alluded to sort of how the strange feeling that participants must have, and how to take stock of how they might be doing. I think with one of the co-leaders, MVL in particular, he hasn't shown the best form of late. And now there he goes. I believe he plays Fabiano in the first game back. how does a player who's been there in the candidates, how do you think about momentum in an event like this, especially as it's not even real momentum, it's online momentum. So how much stock do you put in that?
Yeah, I think MVL's results in online tournaments are, I would say, largely irrelevant. I would be very tempted to just disregard them completely, because I think for both him and Jan, I mean, they're both professional chess players of long standing, and I don't think a professional chess player is capable of not caring about the results. I don't think any of us really enters any event and says to himself, if I score -5 here, I don't care one jot. That's not a mindset that is easily available to any of us. But I think it's very, very clear that for both him and Jan, the only thing that matters is finishing this and winning it. And in view of that, I'm pretty sure it. And once again, maybe this was one of your follow-ups. Because I do get that question quite a bit when I stream or commentate, the question of how much of perhaps his current run of form is to do with him, I don't know, hiding opening preparation and trying not to show what he might be playing in those last 7 games. I don't think people do as much of that as is, the urban legend says that people save novelties for the candidates, and then if they have something, they will never ever play that opening, to not even give a hint where the novelty might be. I think there's a lot less of that these days, because I think the assumption is that pretty much everybody in the top flight is looking at roughly the same pool of positions in the topical openings, which you can expect at this level. So if you have a novelty, that novelty probably was produced by using the same pool of engines that everybody else is using. And there has to be an expectation that if probably at least 3 other people know at this exact moment in time when you discover it. Mm-hmm. I think it's very safe to assume you're maybe not the first one to discover it. So sitting on it and not using it in, let's say, a Magnus Tour game is just a strictly minus EV course of action, because somebody else might show it tomorrow. and also you probably don't get to play it against the absolute top field, because they probably know and they won't play that line against you. So it's not that he is specifically playing suboptimal openings or anything like that, but I think his mind clearly is elsewhere. And he is very much trying to avoid burnout by thinking about the resumption at all times, but also he needs to focus on the candidates, and pretty much to the exclusion of everything else, I would say. Once again, I obviously we're not in touch very much with MVL, so all of this is guesswork, and I kind of dislike this type of psychological guesswork when it applies to other people. But I would say that for players in the candidates, the current online season, it's welcome because it allows you to stay in shape to a degree. But apart from that, they just need this tournament to be over, and then life can resume.
Yeah, it must be. I mean, as fans, people like me are anticipating it. So I can only imagine, as you say, someone with this life-changing potential event coming right up. And for what it's worth, there are some betting markets on the candidates. And the one I saw had MVL at 33%, Nepomniachtchi at 30%, Fabiano at 28%, Giri 11%, Wang Hao and Grishuk around 5%.
That is really, really interesting to me, actually, that a full point difference with 7 to go is only a 5-point spread. That's quite striking to me.
Yeah, I was surprised too. I mean, I think Fabiano does have white against MVL in the very first game.
That is a huge game to open the tournament with. But still, like it's a full point with 7 rounds to go.
Yeah, and then someone like Giri, who I feel like, I mean, obviously you're a higher authority than me, but he's also only a point back, and he was only 11%. So, but we don't need to get into the odds too much.
And I don't think this is disrespect to Anish. I think this is I can sort of understand why FIDE is rated so highly, honestly. I think that is based on something I would mention and something I don't entirely even disagree with. The idea that as someone who has won a candidates tournament before, he comes in with a sort of higher degree of confidence than everybody else in the field, because he can fall back on that experience of 2018 and tell himself, I've done this before, I know it can be done, I know roughly how it can be done. I'm not phased, and you know, my kind of outraged cry of it's 1 point with 7 to go. It works both ways. It's also, but it's only 1 point with 7 to go if we want to talk up FIDE's chances. But still, like in purely mathematical terms, I would expect it to be a lot lower. Like if MVL and Jan are at around 30, I would say that it has to drop down further. But still, I can see why the markets prefer FIDE to Anish, because Anish he doesn't have that to fall back on. He doesn't. He's been playing exceptionally well online. He's probably one of the most improved players of the 2020-2021 season in terms of what he showed online. But that's a whole different ball game. Honestly, different time controls and different environment and all that. And in terms of winning these round robins against the absolute best in the world, very few people have done that. And I don't, like, once again, I'm not falling back on the old, Anish, never won a super tournament memes. First of all, he has. And secondly, that's not what I'm referring to. It's just specifically this competition. And it's really unlike pretty much anything in the world. The double round robin that you play for the candidates is, there used to be tournaments like this, but they pretty much disappeared. So you only really play it when you play the candidates. And the experience of having won it before is very, very valuable.
Yeah, that makes sense. It'll be interesting to see. And of course, I don't know how liquid these betting markets are, but I mean, any model or any market is, like you say, it could be, you could tweak it some, but it's going to be in that area. And it's interesting to hear your perspective about how much experience does matter. So I'm just curious, Peter, we've got a lot to cover, but a bit more about the candidates. As someone who's played, what would your mindset be? Like, say you were playing or thinking back of the candidates tournament you have played in this, like 2 weeks before, what would your routine be like? And obviously, to the extent you can talk about what advice you would give to people you may be giving advice to, I'm sure listeners would love to hear it.
Some very, very light fine tuning of the opening things. But I would be trying, like in the very last 2 weeks before the restart, I would not be doing any heavy duty prep. I think like you go through your preparation, you try to like figure out which of this will be very relevant, which of this will be sort of less relevant. Try to perhaps fine tune some things which are still bugging you a little bit. But mainly, I think you need to put yourself in a positive frame of mind, and just as much as possible. It feels weird to say those words, even because I think like the nervous energy that you accumulate in the run up to this thing is, like, it's very, very difficult to relax and not have it get to you. But ideally, you would like to approach it as well rested and as fresh as possible. I think like the heavy lifting in terms of opening prep, which is, well, I would assume like 95% of all the work, maybe above 95% of all the work that gets done before the candidates, is, trying to guess what will happen, trying to have ideas against things that people will do against you. But that needs to be put slightly to the side, I think, in the last couple of weeks in favor of just like doing whatever it is that works for you to refresh your mind, to get into a positive kind of as calm as possible state of mind before the tournament starts, because then the amount of pressure that's on you when you actually have to sit down and play is going to be immense. And at least in the run-up, I think it's very, very important to recharge as much as possible, because there's going to be no recharging once it gets underway.
Well, that's interesting perspective. And I know that, or again, it's been reported that you were there last year for a bit. Are you able to say, are you going this year to Yekaterinburg?
Barring accidents, yes.
Okay, well, safe travels. That's great to hear. And of course, obviously, COVID, we're not out of the woods with COVID, so something could happen where it's postponed again. I, of course, advocate safety first, but I'm sure FIDE has had a lot of time to put in place good protocols, and I'm sure vaccines have been given and all that. So hopefully we're good to go.
I'm fairly certain, absolutely, everything that can be provided in terms of the safest environment possible will be provided, because FIDE understands. It would be ridiculous, honestly, after the year we've had, not to understand how serious this thing is. And for a tournament which is, when all is said and done, it's a very limited field, you can actually create a very close approximation of a bubble there, and provide all resources needed for the players to, if they don't want to, come into contact with pretty much nobody, as it was in 2020. Like if you wanted to, you could pretty much never leave the room. The food situation was very well covered, and you basically then would only need to take an elevator ride to the floor where you play, and then back up to your room. So,
okay. Sounds good. Okay, so Peter, we've got a lot of listener questions. Just one related to the candidate. So let's jump into it. This is from Patreon subscriber and friend of the podcast, Han Shu. And Han asks, he says, and also I should say, often frequent contributor to New in Chess magazine. Han says, in the preview for the 2016 candidates, Sergei Shipov commented, this is quote, he constantly engages in self-irony, this is referring to you, which in my view is very harmful from the karma point of view. It creates a kind of ceiling which you cannot breach however hard you try, unquote. What does Peter think of this? Is it psychological BS, or is there truth that it can become a self-fulfilling prophecy? Is winning just a matter of playing the best moves and having the strongest nerves, or is there more to it?
Well, it's not a ridiculous suggestion. It's that's a fun one, because I can't really. If this was presented to me as not a Shipov quote, I think I would be agreeing with it readier. But I having stated that as a bias, I can then maybe sort of peel it away and address it as a statement. And as a statement, I think there's some truth to it. I do feel that, and I've actually been discussing it with people this year quite a bit. The whole underselling of yourself shtick that I've been doing for the past 25 years, and how. But I was like, we were discussing it with a very close-knit group of friends, but from a different viewpoint, not from a viewpoint of, how devastating it has been for my career, which I really, by this point, even if it is true, I no longer really care. It's there, so what's the point of discussing it? We were discussing it from a framework of what it actually does to the people who have to listen to me spout this bullshit. And I've been sort of gradually coming to the conclusion that, like, what I assumed was a very harmless activity because it's aimed very directly inward. Seemingly, I'm not really targeting anybody but myself when I do these things. There is this idea that has been presented to me that people who, have to listen to it and react to it are put in a very unenviable position of, working as unpaid therapists. And that is perhaps something that they did not really, volunteer to be. at that particular moment in time, and I am assigning work to people where I just assumed I was just kind of laughing at myself and, inviting people to laugh along. And maybe from that viewpoint, it's not very constructive. As for my career, I have achieved some things. So
you could say that.
So how much we have to buy into the idea that my self-deprecation is tremendously harmful. It's probably not helpful, but it hasn't really stopped me entirely, So
yeah, and it doesn't always mean a lack of confidence when someone's self-deprecating, right?
Not in every single instance. Yeah, I mean, it definitely. I don't think you can do it from a starting point of actual extreme confidence in yourself. I think that would be, a degree of duplicity and hypocrisy that I hope I'm not capable of. But it's not always a very clear sign that there is no confidence there at all.
Okay, interesting stuff. It's interesting to hear when you're so accomplished that you've developed this reputation. But anyway, we'll leave it there because I want to talk about your Chessable course, and we have lots of listener questions to get to. But first, Peter, we're going to take a break and hear from a certain company called Chessable. You'll never guess which course this week's Chessable ad for Perpetual Chess will highlight. Okay, maybe you guessed it. Lifetime Repertoires, Peter Svidler's Grunfeld Part 1 is now hit the virtual shelves. It is available from Chessable. Of course, this is Grandmaster Svidler's life's work. He's been known for this opening for 25 years. It is a fierce, swashbuckling opening, so if you're into attacking chess, then you might want to check it out. There's a short and sweet version that you can check out for free, and if you like it, of course, you might want to pick up the whole course. It utilizes Chessable's Move Trainer technology to help you remember what you learn. So go to chessable.com, take a look around, and either pick up this course or whatever else you may be interested in. Let's get back to the fantastic interview with Grandmaster Svidler. So Peter, your magnum opus, the Grunfeld Lifetime Repertoires course. So I'm curious, of course, I mean, you've been basically the world authority on the Grunfeld for decades, but now you're putting your name on this product, releasing, I'm sure some knowledge that maybe wasn't widely disseminated, but also I'm sure interfacing with engines in your work. So how many new discoveries did you have as you put this course, as you got this course ready?
Quite a lot. I mean, I did not set out to specifically like never give anything that already was given in the Chess24 course, because obviously in a lot of places the solutions that I gave there still hold, and there's no particular reason to overhaul them just for the sake of providing a new answer when the old answer is perfectly serviceable. But there's a whole bunch of new material in it, of course. And I mean, the opening is still very much alive, first and foremost, but also the opening is in a very healthy state of constant evolution. And for me, they are extremely annoying, those moments, but they do happen a lot more often than I would like. And in particular, they seem in my mind to be very associated with the name Daniel Dubov, but not only. And this course provided me with a couple of those where I thought, there is no Dubov here to kind of thumb his nose at me, but this is still happening somehow.
Could you explain what you mean?
Yeah, by that? I will. Yeah, but like specifically, Dubov at some point in the very starting position of the Grunfeld, move 4 after bishop g5, Dubov at some point started playing c7, c5 in this position. And bishop g5 has been a line which I looked at possibly the most in my entire, out of all the Grunfelds, I probably spent more time on various replies to bishop g5 than on anything else in the entire opening. Maybe with rook b1 and or bishop b3 being close seconds. And he somehow plays something on move 4, which I've never looked at, and it's still playable and very interesting. And also, like, in terms of what those ideas represent, it's very, very close to what I would like the Grunfeld to be. And you just sit there and think, like, this is an abject failure on your part, Peter. Why weren't you there, way before he was born? Like, why?
Right.
In particular, because, the move existed before I started playing it, but bishop g5, bishop g7, which is a pawn sacrifice, which I gave in the Chess 24 course, I came up with it on my own because, in the early 90s, you did not really have much in the way of internet access in Leningrad. And in general, chess databases were, sometime in the future yet. So I did not know of the Adorian's attempts to make this playable and so on. And there was genuinely an invention, even though it turned out to be an invention somebody has done before me, but I didn't know that. So, like, the idea of not defending the pawn on d5 on move 4 definitely occurred to me, and I developed it into a very healthy repertoire even. But somehow, in all the years after, it never really occurred to me that there are other ways of not defending the pawn on c5, and that was a very hurtful moment. I did not enjoy that one bit. And when working for the course, there were definitely a few spots like this where I thought, why am I only discovering this now? At least I am discovering this now, so it's not, it's I'm still capable of finding something out for myself in this opening, and it's good. But it's very eye-opening just how much there is still to learn, even in an opening I've been playing for 30 years.
Yeah, and listeners, I apologize if there's noise in my background. There's construction outside, but we'll soldier on. So were you using, Peter, the standard cocktail of Stockfish and Leela Zero for this?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, I think this is sort of the accepted combo now. Ideally you want to run both side by side and kind of pit them against each other.
And how different was that than, like, your typical work? Friend of the podcast, Stephen Sparks, had written in to ask how much you're working on your chess generally these days, what your ambitions are for OTB as we return, and how it interfaces with, obviously, this project.
Well, that was sort of my chess work. As I may have alluded to earlier, like, my current ambitions are, when I actually sit down and play, I suddenly realize I am still somewhat ambitious, but sort of not until I sit down and play. And that resulted in me doing, like, whatever work I do these days is more to do with, like, the style of commentary that I generally engage in. I firmly believe actually does count as chess work, because you are sort of trying to play a very high level game of chess together with the two players who are playing it. When you're trying to comment on a high level tournament with pretty much using no engines at all until you get very, very tired and you just feel your brain's becoming sluggish, and you feel that at this point, if you continue in the same mode, you will just be doing a disservice to the viewers. And then occasionally I start peeking under the hood a little bit, but for the first 4 hours, I try as much as possible to have absolutely no outside help whatsoever. And that's very, very difficult to do well, I feel. And that does, I think, constitute a very, very good exercise for your brain. But it's not structured work. It's just, like, it keeps you in touch with the game. It keeps your brain from becoming, stale. And but it's not what people who are working on chess systematically to become better at chess are doing. And then Chessable approached me for this course, and that kind of forced me into exactly the kind of structured work that I haven't been doing for a while, and it was difficult to return to it, but it's also quite fun, in particular if you like the subject. I think like if I had to, there was a very funny interaction because I somewhere around late last year, I think, when I thought I figured something out about what this course will look like and sort of how to continue working on it. Because also, like, one thing about writing a first course for Chessable that you aren't really very prepared for, as someone like me, for instance, I don't know how it works for other people, but the one conversation I've had so far with a colleague on this subject, we basically were finishing each other's sentences when I was describing that experience. I spoke about this with Hare Krishna, I think. So as a high level player who's been playing top chess for decades, you have a way of presenting material for yourself that is very, very it's become part of you. It's become a very set routine. You know how your files look like. You know, like, which lines are promoted to be the main lines in the file. You know how the file is structured to draw attention to things that need to be drawn attention to, and so on. And then you get commissioned to write something for Chessable, and you create a bunch of those files, and then you send them to Chessable and say, well, here are the files for the course. What do you think? And they return them to you, and they are all exceptionally polite people, I have to say. It's a very I'm intensely suspicious of that company. I still have not met a single unpleasant person. This is very unnatural, and I don't know what to think. So they very, very politely return those files to you, and they say, yeah, this is all wonderful, Peter, but where are the annotations? And at that point, like, after the first shock passes, and it's like it's a blow to the system, because you think you've given them like a perfectly serviceable file you wouldn't be ashamed of showing your 2750 plus colleagues, and it gets returned to you with a very, very polite instruction to actually say something. and you're just sitting there thinking, what? Excuse me, what? But once you get past that first impression, and you realize that they've been doing this for a while, they know exactly what their users want out of an opening course. So they're asking you to retool it so that people who are ideally going to buy your course will enjoy it more, which I think is a goal
Yeah,
worth working
reasonable.
for.
Yeah.
It's an interesting learning curve, but in the end, I think the product I've finished with is quite good, and is good both for like, I'm still pretty certain it's usable at a very high level. Like, if somebody wanted to, as there was, on 2+2, there was the check my line, yeah, the check my line part of 2+2 forums. For my colleagues, I think it still can be used as a kind of a check my line thing, just to see what my thinking is on certain things. But I think it's also quite well tooled to be perhaps the first serious Grunfeld course somebody ever lays their eyes on, and I'm quite proud of it. I'm never entirely satisfied with anything I do, and I assume, just as I mentioned, that Grunfeld is a kind of a living organism, just as really any opening is. I'm sure, as events happen and games happen and things change, there might be updates to it down the line, but I'm quite happy with what we're about to ship.
That's great to hear, and I believe it will be out by the time this interview is released. And alluding to what you were discussing, I know with courses like Wesley So's Double King Pawn course and your buddy Jan Gustafsson's Double King Pawn course and like the Anish Giri, Najdorf, and French courses, I know that top players do use them. So it's always tricky to navigate, making it accessible for a wide range of levels.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that is very, very difficult to judge properly, like how much toning down of like what my normal style of presentation would be, like how, in particular for somebody who is only doing their first course, like for me here, I think I really needed to be like walked through the process of creating something that is high level, but also is accessible enough for people who are perhaps not my immediate peers. But I think with their help, I think the final result is quite good.
I am sure it is, and listeners, stay tuned. We'll be giving away a couple courses, so listen for instructions at the end of the episode. So, Peter, we've got a bunch of questions, so I'm just going to start diving in.
Sure.
So the first one is, well, not the first one. The next one is from Deepankar Ghosh, who says, first of all, I'm a big fan of Peter Svidler for his dynamic playing style, his commentaries with Chess24, and his recent Working with Young Talents videos, referring to your co-chess videos with Tani, which are excellent.
Yeah, that is fun, yeah.
Yeah, it is fun to watch. Here's my question to Peter. I'm an adult player rated around 1900, and I have a chess style that I believe is similar to yours in spirit, where I favor dynamic positions where I can play with active pieces for the initiative, even at the cost of material. The challenge, however, is the strong visceral dislike towards quiet, dull positions without much concrete play or an obvious plan. How can I overcome this weakness and get better at the less exciting parts of the games, which cannot be avoided entirely?
Yeah, I don't actually have a silver bullet for those questions. And I do want to preface, because there might be more of questions in that vein, I want to preface whatever I say on these topics by, I do not actually coach. And that is not to say, please don't ask me, and like, why are you asking me, and go away, but more as a way of saying, please don't trust what I say, because I don't really have any idea. But with the thing as vanilla as the thing I'm about to say, I think I'm on very safe ground. I was very much like that when I was growing up. I really hated playing positions where I couldn't understand where the next exciting thing will come from. And I was honestly, obviously for a given value of bad, but I was quite bad at them. And the way you improve is you get to the level where people start beating you at those things, and you watch them beat you. And first of all, that motivates you psychologically, because I don't think anybody really likes losing, whatever they say. So it's not much fun, but also it provides you with really invaluable data on what they're doing that you're not doing. So basically, you get better at it by getting to a place where you're playing people slightly better than you, who are punishing you for your mistakes in those types of positions, and hopefully learning from your mistakes, and learning not just from your mistakes, but also learning from what those players are doing that you're not doing. I don't think there is, any kind of a esoteric practice that top players have that just instantly solves the dislike for dry positions. I've become quite okay at dry positions, but I've become quite okay at dry positions, I think, through sheer volume of chess played against good players, and being around good players. And also something that these days I think is kind of sorely missing. And I mean, you can quite easily understand why it's sorely missing, but it's still, I think, a loss. People don't really do postmortems anymore, because I think the major and pretty much maybe the only reason why people don't do postmortems anymore is the feeling of like absolute futility of it, because you will get back to your hotel room and your phone You know, you don't even have to get back to the hotel room anymore. Like, your phone will tell you where your mistake was. You don't even need to switch the laptop on, and that makes it kind of a waste of time to a degree, perhaps, to analyze games after they finished, because you will be, you know, striving to approximate what your phone will tell you in 3 seconds. But they were invaluable in teaching me things when I just sort of came onto the scene, because, you know, you lose a game, you lose a, you know, a dry positional game to somebody like Boris Gelfand, and then you sit down and you analyze with him, and he starts teaching. He starts not teaching you. He's not teaching you exactly, but he shows you what he thought you should have been playing instead of what you played that cost you the game, and you have this conversation with him on that topic, and if you are not taking something away from that, something is going badly wrong, because it's very, very difficult not to absorb this. I understand I'm talking from an extremely privileged position of somebody. Like, this is a scenario you don't necessarily have access to. But even talking to a player at the club level who is stronger than you, there is a reason why he's stronger than you. So he will have, you know, thoughts on the game that will be useful to you, because, you know, if you're losing to him, he is definitely doing something better than what you're doing. It's going to be scaled down a little bit, but it's still going to be true, I think. So, you know, practice, and if you have smart people around you to talk chess with, it's going to be extremely useful. But yeah, as I you know, this is clearly. I'm sure your viewers could have actually, like, written down that answer and won a bet with you on, like, you know, this is my question to Peter Svidler, and this is what he will say, and if he does say that, I win $50. I think you're down $50 right now, but there really isn't very much I can say apart from that. I started off as a very decent dynamic player who did not really understand much else, and you do evolve by the process of, you know, being around people who can show you things both in practice and also before and after games when you talk to them. So it's not impossible, but there is no magic solution.
Yeah, excellent advice. And if anything, I think with club players, it's easier to find a strong player. There aren't that many Boris Gelfands running around. So
I mean, sure, exactly. And just as I gave that speech about no postmortems, I suspect they're much more. I mean, they're probably still very much a thing at club level, much more than they are at top events. Because at top events, they really kind of sadly disappeared. They still happen occasionally, but a lot less than they did, let's say, in the mid-90s when I was just beginning. Because then you would, like, if you played an interesting game, you knew you were not having early dinner that night, because you knew that you would immediately find the board, and like half the tournament would congregate around the board, and we would all just look at it for the next 3 hours. That great. No longer really happens.
Yeah, it's a bit sad, but time only moves forward. All right, well, so next question, Peter, and this one of several people asked, of course. This is from Greg Smith. He says, we haven't seen you and GM Jan Gustafsson doing tournament commentary as frequently on Chess24. How are these decisions made, and when will we see you back?
It's a kind of a. I'm not really involved in the decision making going on at Chess24 right now. Chess24 these days is a very, very serious corporate entity. And the roster of commentators available to Chess24 is one thing that hasn't changed. We Chess24 still absolutely has the best roster of people talking about the game, but Jan is these days, I think, more often found in the German studio than in an English studio, and I sadly don't speak German, so that precludes the reunion a little bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, we would both very much like to work with each other again. I can't tell when that will happen. I really hope it does happen, because working with Gusti is my happy place. But there is no set schedule for that. We were if not for the Grunfeld course, we probably would have done the entirety of FIDE together, I think. But basically, by the time January rolled in, I was in absolute sort of full panic mode, trying to like fit every single hour of the day into the clicking and the typing, and then some more clicking and then some more typing. And I mean, FIDE being what it is, like, 2.5 weeks of 7 hours per day, pretty much, considering the amount of chess being played and the time control. I just couldn't do it. And that was a very, very sad decision. I think it's the first time ever that I said no to the idea of doing a long event with Gusti. I was not happy, but it was a decision that needed to be made at the time.
Okay, well, we of course look forward to it, because otherwise I'm going to have to learn German, and as will you. So yeah.
I mean, honestly, it's sort of I don't know what your situation with German is, but for me it's kind of shameful, because like, why don't I speak German already? I've played 20 seasons of Bundesliga. It's really inexcusable.
Yeah, I can't say the same.
Yeah, exactly. Like I don't know what your situation is, but for me, I've spent so much of my life in Germany, from the very early Bundesliga seasons to all of the work I've done in the Hamburg offices, that this really is a very, very sad indictment of how lazy I am.
I don't know if I'd go that far, but that does bring me back to Stephen Sparks' question about, so do you have any OTB tournaments firmly on your calendar?
No. I mean, there is supposedly a Russian clubs in May, which, I mean, the thing is, apart from the absolute like top level events, specifically the candidates and the match in Dubai, right, where the field is small enough and the stakes high enough, and the importance of it to the entire, well-being of the chess world. I mean, that's maybe a slight on the overstatement, but not entirely a ridiculous statement either. I think pretty much everything is in flux, right? I mean, Norway chess has been postponed for whatever it is, like 4 months or something. Like, I think it was supposed to happen very soon-ish, May, maybe June. I haven't followed it very closely, but they announced, I think, a couple of weeks ago that they're moving it to autumn. And that's an elite event with a very small field, which is, compared to, let's say, the World Cup, is about as easy to organize and bubble as it is possible to get. And even that is being moved right now, because the situation is still very, very unclear. So I basically, somewhere, I think, mid-2020, I just made a somewhat conscious decision to limit my planning to like the rest of the week, maybe, or 2 days ahead, and just do that, and not really even attempt to like answer the question of what the rest of my year will look like. And I'm not playing over the board chess for the next 3 days. That much I know.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Not every chess player has a janitor to help them improve at chess like Beth Harmon did. For those of you who don't, there is Aimchess.com. Aimchess has a web-based algorithm that collects and analyzes your games from chess.com or Lichess, and then it creates personalized study plans based on your weaknesses to help you improve. It might highlight specific openings to work on, tell you to tighten up your tactics, or in my case, tell me to manage my time better. Then it gives you puzzles and advice with the goal of helping you improve your chess faster. You can check out Aimchess for free, and then if you decide to subscribe, please use the promo code CHESS30 to save 30%. That's CHESS30. The details are also in the show notes. So for now, let's get back to the interview. So another question, this one's from Jason Willem, who asks, with your joy of the popular game Hearthstone and other deck builder type games, how much do you think these games help out with your chess?
They don't. It specifically, not because the games are like very, very detrimental to the way you think about things. It's just that, the amount of time I spend, spamming BGs these days could be spent on something else, pretty much anything else, honestly. And it's just that it's a huge time sink. I still really like the game. I stream the game, and then I've actually built not really built, but very strong players actually watch me being horrible at that game and give me advice, and that's very, very both useful and kind of heartwarming that I am now a somewhat recognized, idiot in that community, which is exactly what I've sort of set out to be. I know I will never be properly good at it, even though, there are some examples, like he doesn't stream it very much anymore, but Evgeny Tomashevsky at some point was like top 30 EU in Battlegrounds, and he is like properly good, and while also continuing to be a very, very strong chess player. So it's not impossible. But in my case, like I'm aspiring to be a running gag in that community, but hopefully a good-natured running gag.
Nepomniachtchi's been a keen gamer too, right?
Yeah, but he's scaled it. I think one of the reasons for his much improved chess performances was that he scaled it down and became a lot more serious about chess. Not that he doesn't game anymore, he definitely does, but he switched from being like a 50-50 splitter to I don't know, a 90-10 split in favor of chess or something, and that definitely improves your outlook as a chess professional.
Makes sense. Yeah, I think it'd be an interesting matchup if he ends up playing Magnus.
Yeah, that would be something to watch for sure. Yeah.
Okay, so 3 more listener questions if you're good for it, Peter.
Sure, yeah. Go on.
Awesome, thank you. So, and this one also came up a couple times, so I will actually read these 2 together. Steve C. says, your work tangential to playing, streaming, commenting, coaching, Tani, etc. is always great entertainment. His favorites of these recently were your conversations about your own games, for example, the masterclass with GM Yannick Pelletier and the breakdown of your win versus Kasparov for Chess 24. I recommend those as well. I really enjoyed those as well. The questions are, could you please have a crack at writing a book of some kind when your current workload settles down? An evergreen question for Peter. And if you have limited enthusiasm for your book, do you have other Svidler retrospective type projects planned? And then Gautam Narula asks the same question and just says, if you did write a book, what would it be about?
Yeah, I think one of the reasons why there hasn't been a book yet is that I don't entirely know what I would write about, because like the easy solution would be to write some sort of a best games book, but that just doesn't really excite me very much. Honestly, it's just like sort of, it's a rehashing of past glories, which it just really, I find no fault in the idea. It's just that it doesn't really get me going in any way. I feel like, my time can better be spent elsewhere. And the issue here is that it will once again, people will suspect that I'm doing this as a bit, like it's the kind of the constant bit of me no good at chess. But I am pretty, like I'm now at peace with the idea that I actually am pretty good at chess, or at least I have been at some points in my career. But I'm a purely practical player. One thing I sort of realized about myself is that throughout my career, I've been basically a very, very gifted practical player, and that is something that I feel is very, very difficult to teach or put into words. Like the things that come instinctively to players like me, once you try to explain them, like no words come out. You just sit there thinking, but this is because this is, like, I kind of know that this is either right or a very close approximation of right, but I can't explain how, and I can't really verbalize the thought process that got me there. Which is why, let's say, writing a book like the books Boris Gelfand is now writing with Jacob Aagaard is like a no-go, not because I don't think it's a valuable use of my time, but because I think, somebody like Boris actually has concepts about chess which he thought deeply about. And if he shares them with the world is much the better for it. Whereas in my case, like you open the book and it's just a shrug emoji, you know, like shrug emoji on every page. Like here I played this because shrug emoji, you know, like.
Well, how much of it is concrete analysis though? Is it just that it would be kind of like Kasparov's or Kamsky's books, like very filled with variations, or is it really just that intuitive for you?
I don't know. I've not really tried. I've not really even tried going in that direction. But as I mentioned, just providing you with detailed analysis of what happened in my games is one thing. I could do that, but that really is, it's bubblegum. It's not really. Bubblegum is probably not the empty calories is what I would like to describe it as. Right? It's nice content. It's reasonably easy to provide. I don't know what good it does for me to do it, but I wouldn't trust myself to try explaining concepts because I don't know if I understand the concepts. It's the areas of chess where I feel competent are very difficult for me to put into work. Like I trust myself to explain opening concepts in the openings I've been playing all my life. This, I think, sort of circling back to the course which we're about to release, I don't feel like an imposter talking about Grunfeld, because I feel that I've amassed enough experience playing the Grunfeld and also talking about Grunfeld with other people that there I feel it's quite okay for me to do that. But talking on the wider spectrum of things to do with chess, I'm not entirely sure where to begin and in which direction to go. And people do occasionally approach me with offers of writing a book, but so far I've been very steadfast in saying no thanks.
Well, you're discussing this reminded me of a question that I almost forgot, which was Mikhail Ablin, author of the Anon Files, is I'm friendly with him. He's been on the show, and he asked A, if you'd read that book, B, if it matched with your interactions working on World Championship teams. And that makes me think that even just a sort of behind the scenes memoir, even if you leave out the chess analysis, obviously chess fans would eat that up.
Yeah, that would be the other thing that I could have tried, but a book has been written on sort of like my experiences are part of those experiences, like the Bareyev-Levitov book on Brisago. Yeah, and I don't think if I want to relive that again, it's I still feel those are not easy memories, and Vlad still talks to me, which is quite something. I've spoken to him today. It's
wow.
It's kind of remarkable in a way, after all that.
And when you're getting ready, obviously, you can punt on this question if you want, but helping Alekseenko, if you have a casual conversation with Vlad, do you pick his brain at all for?
No, it wasn't like we're not like in daily touch about things. I just like generally, if we're talking about Brisago, the general fact that we still talk is not a given. Let's put it like that.
I think he's happy with how his life turned out. Grandmaster Vladimir Kramnik we're referring to, of course, and the book is From London to Alista. All right, 3 more questions. Let's hop to them, Peter, because we're keeping you late. From Jonathan Bryant, and I can't contribute to this at all, but John asks, shout out to JB, he asks, who would you pick in your England's all-time greatest cricket number 11?
Don't ask me that, because this interview will never end. Because I would need to start thinking and like consulting sources and so on. But I don't know. How would that look? Like, I don't know, Hutton, Sutcliffe, Hobbs, I don't know, Thorpe, Stewart, Keeping. No, probably not Stewart. I don't know. And for bowlers, I'm not picking any of the modern ones. I think it's just too difficult, and I don't know. It's a good question, but I know enough about the game to kind of fake responding to it, but also I don't feel like I should be, because like I'm exactly at the spot where I can probably fake it reasonably convincingly, but I know deep down that I'm not good enough to actually nominate an 11.
Okay. And last question is from Bradley Juoperi. And Bradley, of course, is impressed with your mastery of the English language. And he says, as an adult and chess improver, he's been working on learning Russian, and it's helped him view, and learning Russian has helped him view chess more like learning a language than before. Are there shared or borrowing learning concepts from both chess and English that helped you master both?
I wanted to say, it's one of those questions of, how is chess like a thing X, which I don't particularly like, because normally a thing X is not really very like chess, and you are forced to talk out of your ass a little bit there. But in my particular case, I can actually give an answer which I think is a true answer, and also, I mean, it might not be useful, but it's true, and there is definitely a direct if not a comparison, then similarity. I definitely picked up English by just speaking English. I picked it through practice and sort of deep immersion into the language. I started reading in English in the early to mid 90s, and very, very quickly, the volume of my reading is split 90-10 in favor of English these days. I almost don't read in Russian at all. And this has been the case for a long, long time now. And I think much the same can be said about chess. I fell in love with the game when I was, my dad showed me the pieces when I was 6. And basically from that moment on, they couldn't drag me away from the board. And if you care about the subject this much, I think obviously it helps that you're, first of all, I have to probably admit that I have a gift for chess, and I probably have a knack for languages, even though with only one language that really is sort of unproven. But but just absolutely devoting yourself to something will help a great deal. And with chess and with English, I've never really been the hardest worker in chess. My work ethic and my ability and or desire to do structured work has never really been the greatest. But in particular, when I was younger, I still thought about chess and did something chess related every day for the first, 20 years of me playing the game, starting from 6 or so. And with English as well, it always fascinated me, and I made a very conscious effort to surround myself with as much English as possible, watching shows, listening to music. And it kind of helps that I don't really like music where lyrics play no part at all. So when you actually care about the lyrics, that improves your relationship with the language as well, because I think listening to music and trying to figure out what they're trying to tell you is good as it is part of the learning process. And famously, my the very first event that jump-started my relationship with English was Leisure Suit Larry, which I don't know if you're probably too young to have played Leisure Suit Larry, but I'm old enough to have played the actual, they became point and click, but when I started playing them, there was no pointing and clicking. You typed everything. And those adventure games progress your English admirably, because if you typed something incorrectly, nothing would happen. So you really had to work out how language works in that particular setting. But yeah, just sort of deep immersion and interest in the subject will go a long way.
Great advice. Yeah. And Bruce Brandolfini recently said the same thing and alluding to how top talents learn, like Fabiano, who he worked with at a young age, learn chess. All right. Well, Peter, we've kept you a little longer than I said, so I want to thank you so much.
It's all good.
I know you're a busy man and busier than ever. So really appreciate it. Listeners, stay tuned. We'll give instructions for giving away a few courses of Peter's. So I'll add that to the end. But Peter, you're on Twitter, you're on Twitch. I suppose people know where to find you, right?
Yeah, I think on Twitter, I'm really easy to find. Twitch used to be somewhat hidden, but I've posted the link on my Twitter so much these days that I don't think it's a secret anymore.
Okay. Well, thank you so much. Safe travels to Yekaterinburg. And I, again, really appreciate it. This was a treat.
Thank you.
Okay, listeners, we are back with the details on the Lifetime Repertoires Grunfeld course giveaway by Grandmaster Peter Svidler. Of course, every once in a while, I like to support the work of our esteemed guests and give back to the community by rewarding listeners and at the same time artificially inflate my social media imprint. So this time, what you need to do to enter the contest is simply to subscribe to the Perpetual Chess YouTube channel. I know that most of you listen on podcast apps, and all we post right now on YouTube are video renderings of the interviews, but I may start sharing some clips and adding more content as time goes on. So it can't hurt to have more subscribers. And if you're already a subscriber, you can just send a screenshot that says you're subscribed. And if you do subscribe, also send a screenshot. Send to ben@perpetualchesspod.com, and please put in the subject YouTube so that I can sort the entries easily. The deadline is May 1st, and that is when I will notify the winner via email. So again, screenshot of YouTube subscription, and the courses given away will not be the video versions of the Chessable course. They will be the text versions, and there will be 2 to 3 courses given away. So that is it, everyone. Thanks for listening, and I will catch you guys all next week. Thanks, as always, to my producer, Matthew Passy. Thanks to you all for listening, and thanks to those of you who help spread the word, whether it be positive reviews on podcast platforms, telling friends, social media. All that stuff helps get the word out, and it is much appreciated. By the way, you can follow me on Twitter. I'm @BennyFishel1. You can join the Perpetual Chess Facebook group to continue the conversation, sometimes even with that week's guests. The Perpetual Chess Instagram page is back in action as well, @Perpetual Chess, and you can also find all these links on the Perpetual Chess webpage, perpetualchesspod.com. But of course, the main purpose of these closing credits is to thank everyone who supports Perpetual Chess financially. Without you all, we would not be able to put out such a consistent and hopefully quality product. So thanks so much. It really means the world to me. And in particular, I would like to give thanks to the following people and entities, starting off with my friends at Chessable.com. Aside from that, I would like to thank David Lazarus of LazmanChess.com. He is the coach of Dave's Young Tigers on Lee Chess, our friends at Quality Chess Books, the Capital City Chess Club, the Abysmal Depths of Chess blog, Adapta Interactive Web Designs and Services, the Apprend Chess Twitch channel, A Needy Deer, Austin Clough, Benjamin Porteau, Bill Sigler, Kathy Carr, Chad Oliver, the Charlotte Chess Center, the Chess Essentials Chess blog, Chessmood.com, Chris Flanagan, Chris Lott, Dan O'Hanlon, Daniel He, Danny Davidson, David Schreiber, I am Dimitri Schneider, I am Eric Rosen, Eric Tam, Ewan Richardson, Farhan Thawar, Faraz Sawaf, Gary Foreman, Glenn Downing, Greg Harfst, Greg Shahadi, Gregory Gulick, Guven Manet, James Holyhead, James Kennedy, Jeff Martinson, Jens Green, Jeremy Nielsen, John Jernigan, John Rockefeller, John MacArthur, Kelly Palmer, Kevin O'Callahan, King Selt, the King's Crusher YouTube channel, one of the original chess YouTube channels, Lucio Casada Silva, the law offices of Stuart Katz, Matthew Feeney, Michael Can, FM Michael Oblin, Mike Zelazny, Mr. Mike Shahadi, the legendary Mr. Dodgy, the Nerdnaze Twitch channel, GM Peter Prohaska, Peter Sodhi, the Play More Chess Academy of the Hamden Chess Club, Reuven Fisher, Reverend Roy Fry, the Seattle Chess Club, Shane Unger, Stefan Kelty, Stephen Martinez, Sven Gierson, Thomas Stanix, Thomas Tachenko, Todd Bryant of Strong Chess, Todd Kennedy, the Vintage Patzers, which is a chess.com improver group. You can look them up. Wayne Beam, William Hogarth, and I also would like to thank Aaron Waffler, Ace Viega, Adam Ralph of ChessEngland.com, Adrian Gutierrez, Al Hastings, Alan and Maggie Sue, Alex Pejas, Alexander Markovics, Antonio Cancino, FM Andre Terakov, Dr. Andrew Perry, Angus McLeod, Barry Hessian, Bill Juniper, Bill Moran, Bill Trammell, Brad and Andy Rosen, Brett Howard Lynn, Brian Chase, Brian Mullis, Bruce Scott, Brian Tillis of Palm Beach Chess, Cameron Davis, Chad Hilton, Chess Potzer Spain, Dr. Charles Snodgrass, Chris Wainscott, Christopher Baumgartner, Christopher Chabris, Christopher Wood. I am Christoph Zalecki, also known as Chess Explained, Coach J's Chess Academy, Corey Butson, Costa Carras, Courtney Fry, Craig Mallon, Daniel Ginsberg, Daniel Naylor, Dave Saylor, David Bleskacek, David Brown, David Hamblin, David Cramley, Dalen Shelton, Dennis Parrish, Dirk Decker, FM Donnie Ariel, Dwayne Edmonds, Ed Daly, Ed Mead, Emmanuel Langual, Robitaille, Ethan Smith, Hallelujah Cat, Ian Mason, Fide Arbiter, Felipe Melo Perdera, Fox Valley Chess Club, Francis Letarte Lavoie, Dr. Frank Tortoris, Frank Zananis, Gary Andrews, Gary Lewis, Gautam Narula, Geert Vanderveld, Gene Stewart, George Harris, Giovanni Russo, Han Schutt, Harish Srinivasan, Howard Vihan, Jacob Kovac, Jason Apollo, Jason Murray, Jacques Pari, James Aspinwall, James Benastia, James Muir, Jason Woolham, Jaydeep Chakrabarty, Jeff Anderson, Jeffrey Martello, Yep Hoyland, Jerry Wells, Jesse Dacumos, Jesse McNulty, Jim Ratliff, Joe DeSano, Joe Valdez, Joel Thomas Ramos, John Tooley, Juan Almaguer, Dr. John Fallon, John Fernandez, John Fontaine, John Hartman of U.S. Chess, John Jeffrey, John McMurtry, Jonathan Slater, John Quist, John Tully, Jose Rodriguez, Justin Gardner, Jen Shahadi, Joel Rocky, John Thompson, GM Josh Friedel, I am Kare Christensen, WGM Katerina Nemtsova, Kelly Palmer, Kevin Pryor, I am Kostya Kovyutsky of the Chess Dojo, Krishna Gopala Krishnan, Kyle McAvoy, Larry Cook, Larry Reiforth, Laura Belyovsky, Macaulay Peterson, Mark Fitzpatrick, Mark Miller, Mark Wilkins, Marco Bulatovich, Martin Knudsen, Martin Krug, Matthew Passy, Matthew Tedesco of SeattleChessMeetup.org, Matthias Plock, Mechanics Institute Chess Club of San Francisco, Michael Allard, Michael Hudson, Mike Clem, Mitchell Fabian, Nate Goebel, Nate Solon, Neil Bruce, Nigmat Malajanov, Nicholas Isabel, Olaf Mueller-Michaels, GM Pascal Charbonneau, Passy Passanen, Paul Bain, Paul Clarkson, Paul Sweeney, Paulo Santana, Peter Lux, Queenside Management Limited in Switzerland, Randy Temple, Ricky Grahava, Richard Hallenbach, Richard Tucker, Robert Callahan, Robert Tichy, Robert Turner, Rory Coleman, Rory Yearwood, Ryan Berg, the Say Chess YouTube channel, Scott McKinnon, Scott Shepard, Sean Krause, Sebastian Finsterwater, Walter, Sergei Magakon, Seth Ruzicka, Shane Unger, Silver Knights in Richmond, Stefan Roller, WGM Tatyev Abrahamian, Tim Brennan of TacticsTime.com, Tim Seymour, Timothy Ha, FM Timothy Wall, Tom Edsel, Tomas Komanich, Tony Rittel, Tyron Price, Vishnu Srikumar, William Brock, William Peterson, FM Zhao Cheng of Chess1000.com, and last but never least, Zhivko Stoyanov. Thanks for listening, everyone, and we will catch you all next week.